Reuben, could you tell us a little bit about the nature of your illness?
I was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia in the summer of 2000, and it's something which is debilitating, if that's the right word. It grinds me down. It's almost like I'm in competition with the illness, who wins.
So did drugs play a part in your illness then?
I think the drugs made what was a complicated issue more complicated. The thing which actually works for maintaining my illness is getting out, talking to people, trying to keep fit. But sometimes often the motivation is not there. It's a balancing act, I think, a lot of the time.
Explain to us your belief that your personal appearance and grooming helps you as a coping strategy. Do you find that helps you to present yourself to the world in a kind of a way that you want, rather than letting the illness kind of take over?
Yeah, it gives me confidence to dress smartly and cleanly. I don't have to worry about the person next to me smelling me, because people look at me and think, you don't look like you've got schizophrenia, and I'm thinking, well,
what does a schizophrenic look like?
Yeah, exactly. There are two ways in which people judge you, and if you do behave appropriately, and if you dress or present yourself in a way which challenges people's perceptions of illness, then I guess people look for a deeper reason. Well, this person's not ill because they're behaving inappropriately, or because they're not meeting the standards of self-care. There must be something else there, that has caused the illness, rather than what we can see.
Right.
So it causes people to think about.
Now, you mentioned that the NHS and the system in general provided support structures that were rather impersonal. How have you managed to develop your own personal support structures?
In part, the service, the mental health services that are provided, which is a low level of support. They sort of encourage and at times really kind of push me to do things which aren't necessarily comfortable or enjoyable, but are beneficial as well. An example is there's a canoe club in Carlisle which I found out about, and I was really nervous about going, and sometimes, in the past I probably would have had a support worker with me, but just going to this canoe club for sort of 2 or 3 weeks, it really, being in a group of people that you've never met before, and coming away with it feeling like you've been accepted and, even supported by these complete strangers, is very important. The thing with mental illness is, before you actually give up and break down and tell someone, there is a period where you do try a lot of different things, a lot of different strategies to try and make yourself feel better. And if you get thwarted at every turn, then it sits in you thinking, oh, well, I've already done that and it didn't work.
So what you're saying is that, advice to anybody in a similar situation is don't reject the coping strategies that you've tried in the past just because they didn't work then, because they might be different for you now.
Yes.
Because you're a different person to what you were then.
And be prepared to sort of adjust you thinking. I think, ultimately my goal is to end up with a blank canvas and be able to start again.
Right. If you were talking to yourself when you were 16, what would you say to yourself with the experience that you've got now?
Go easy on yourself, I think. A lot of what I tried to do was suppress what was really kind of bubbling inside of me, and I tried to sort of, constantly trying to put it, knock myself down so I wasn't so outwardly extrovert, which is not how I felt. I felt very introverted. So there was the contrast between what was coming out and what people saw and what I felt inside. Developing my communication skills has been a massive part of my recovery, and being able to communicate my illness when and allowing other people to help me has been a sort of massive step forward for me. But I have my life, and that is very, very important to me. I have a life these days. I have something to work for. I have something. I contribute some sort of in a way which is beneficial to the world, I guess. The one thing that is lacking and has been for a while is a kind of group of friends to do stuff with. Relationships are easy enough, but then as soon as there's any sort of closeness or trust or any of those sorts of issues which are involved in forming a friendship, I withdraw and isolate myself because it's very difficult to deal with.
So is that because you don't trust that people will want to be your friend when they discover that you've got this illness, or is it something to do with the illness itself?
It's to do with past experiences, I think, of friendships and what being a friend is. I have quite high standards, really, sometimes unattainable standards. The paranoia plays quite a big part in it as well. And quite often I suffer from anxiety. It's anxiety about being accepted, and I just feel it's so much easier when I do things on my own. I am a loner, and I do prefer my own company, but I would very much like a group of friends that I could, even our friend that I could phone up and say, all right, how are you doing? Do you want to come round? In some way, I feel like I have to sacrifice, my own values or whatever, just for the sake of friendship. And I think that's what I did with my school friends for a long time.
Do you think that's the nature of the condition? I've heard this before about where people have said they have very high expectations of friends, and it didn't take much for the friends to fall from grace, kind of thing.
No, it's fine until the word friendship comes into play.
Right.
I suppose I look back and think, were they really my friends, or were they, was there some sort of... And that is the illness. Mm. That is the nature of schizophrenia, paranoid schizophrenia.
Well, you've obviously moved forward a long way since you were first ill. Your recovery is amazing. But where do you see yourself going from here? In terms of moving things even further forward, what do you think your next step is?
To move forward, I think, is to carry on doing what I'm doing to a certain extent, and hopefully in the future I can kind of break free of the all the kind of introspective sort of self-hatred that I sometimes fall into. I have aspirations for getting off benefits, although most people would think it's not likely. I would like to own my own home as well, and just not fighting so much, not struggling so much. It's kind of a negative, but I suppose my ultimate goal is to be independent, and I guess I've achieved that to a certain extent. I just plan to move forward and lead a sort of civilised and kind of worthwhile existence, I guess.
When you feel a period coming on that you're not going to be good, Do you recognise it early enough to be able to, you know, kind of do anything about it?
I am able to recognise when I'm unwell, which is, you know, is important for anyone. But getting that rationale of when you are feeling bad, that it won't last forever, that it does pass eventually, it is massive. And when you do believe that, or even know that, it can make it easier getting through the difficult times. I mean, I operate at a level where, I mean, for me, stress and tiredness are the two big triggers, and you know, I can recognise when that's becoming unmanageable.
And you take yourself out of that situation when you
I don't actually, interestingly. No, I actually try and stay in that situation because I think there's always a benefit in in tackling why and how. Because the more you kind of feed it, the worse it seems to get, I think.
So do you sometimes feel that you're in kind of like a battle with the illness then?
Yeah, quite often. If I was to do whatever I felt like, whenever I felt like it, I would become very ill very quickly, I think.
Billy Connolly once said he had a desire to be windswept and interesting. Do you feel that the experiences that you've had through your illness have made you a more interesting person?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, you know, I've experienced something very unique, which is to go to hell and come back again. The path that I've been on gives me such a kind of rich understanding of people and also myself if I get through it. But you know, it bodes well for any job or application of where mental health is regarded as an experience rather than a lifestyle, which I think is a lot of what the battles in mental health are about at the moment. And the illness has provided a kind of foundation in being a bit more daring probably than the average person. But my character and my outlook is still quite sensible and reserved at some stage. It's knowing when to use the illness, and when to sort of sit back and